Hey guys, welcome back to Professional Weekenders YouTube channel. Today we are going to be upgrading the interior of my 2016 Toyota Tundra. The interior is going to go from this to this. So stick around and check it out. Let's go. Alright, this is my 2006 Toyota Tundra. I really do enjoy this truck. It's fairly nice. This is the current interior. Factory option plan is to upgrade these to brand new leather seats from leatherseats.com. They did not pay me for this to mention them, but that's just where I happened to buy the seats. Got a pretty decent deal on them. And also we're going to upgrade the front seats here to include a heated and cooled option too. So that's what I'm most excited about. Honestly, if it was just a matter of living with these fabric seats, I think I probably would, because they're not too bad. I always liked leather, but these fabric ones here seem to be holding up pretty well. This truck has about 145,000 miles on it, and these seats have really held up well. No rips, no tears. Even the dog gets in here and have no issues. Alright, so let's go over what came in the mail. Here's the options that I got. This is the Deluxe leather package, which means that it is mostly leather in all the places where you would want it to be. For instance, these are the front seat covers. The front main part of it is leather, but the sides are vinyl. Now, it's really hard to tell the difference. I can only tell the difference because I know it, and there's a slight texture difference between the side and the front. The front is definitely a little softer, but really I don't think anyone else is going to notice. Also too, I upgraded for the contrast stitching. So this is the black leather with the platinum colored stitching, just to give it a little bit of some character. I think it kind of matches what I already have stock in the interior a little bit better. Also too, I had to upgrade to the perforated leather. I didn't really want the perforated leather necessarily, because I'm worried about longevity of it, especially with the dog going in, but because I wanted the heated and cooled option, it's required. So I got the minimum amount of perforation that is required, which is the backs and the seat bottoms here. That does extend into the back of the cab as well. Now on the back seats, there's less leather. Only the very center part is leather. Majority of the exterior is the vinyl, but again, I can't really tell the difference. I'm hoping that the vinyl kind of holds up better to the dog anyways, so another reason why I wanted to go with more vinyl. Now the seat covers themselves, because for my truck, were about $1,000. I did manage to get a discount on Black Friday, so I saved a couple $100 there, but really, yeah, and there's the headrest too for all 5 seats. And also too, I got the installation kit with these hog rings and a set of hog ring pliers and a set of adhesive spray. Really what sent it over the top is what's in this box. The inside of this box here cost about $750, and this is the option for the heated and cooled seats. So it's got these pads that distribute the cold air, so you should have 2 of those, one for the back and one for the bottom of each seat, so 4 total. We also have all the wiring harnesses, little blowers for the air, and then these little units here. These are what actually are going to create the temperature differential and should provide cold and hot air. Now, I'm a little skeptical of this. I mean, you can see how tiny these things are. Looking at them, it looks like they probably heat one side and try to draw the heat from the other one. It's kind of like a miniature heat pump. So theoretically, depending on which way these things are providing voltage, you should be able to get either hot air or cold air out either side, but we'll see how well that works. I'm really hoping it does work well. That's the whole point of this whole system. So like I said, overall, with the discount, I think it was about $1,750 or so. I think I saved about $250, mostly just in tax, with the Black Friday sale. So that's everything that came in the box. There was no instructions. There were some videos available online that kind of show you how to install this. And I've watched a few of those videos. It doesn't look that difficult. So I think we're just going to jump into it and see how far this goes. And I'll let you know as I come across things. So let's go. Alright, first thing I want to do is I'm going to start in the back seats because they don't have the heated and cooled option, so I think this is going to be a little bit easier place to get started, and we'll save the more difficult front seats for last. Let me kind of work my way into this, and also too, if I mess up the back seats, I don't care as much because I don't sit back here. And so even within the back seats, it's split. It's a 3-row seat, but 2 of them are connected and 1 of them is by itself. So when you lift them up, you have access to this under seat storage area. That's why they split like that. So I think I want to start with the smaller side, just the single individual seat. So we're going to figure out how to get this thing out of here, and we'll get working on getting the factory upholstery off of this and see about installing the new one. Alright, really not sure how to get these seats out, but I think we're going to start with taking this tool chest out. So this is fairly straightforward. These just unscrew back here. There's one. Should be a couple of these throughout. There's another one down here. And we'll go check on the other side. So there's one here. And there should be one there, but it's already fallen out. Alright, so should allow us to lift this thing here out of the way, and we'll check back. Alright, so I think I nearly got these back seats out. So what I found here there are 6 of these bolts, 4 on this side and 2 on the other side. Basically, these are 14 millimeters. They have 3 of them in the floor. So one here, and similarly over there, and then also behind, pretty much same spot, onto the back wall. There's 3 of them there. There's one there, another one over here, and then the last one there. And now, once you get those out, pretty much it's kind of loose, but it's still not quite going. I think the trick here is you just got to lift up on it, and you can kind of see it. It starts to give way on the back. So I think this is kind of just sitting in there. So I think the plan is just, once you get those 6 out, just lift the whole thing up. So I'm going to do that. I need 2 hands. Alright, and with that we got it loose. Yeah, so basically there's these hooks back here. Looks like there's about 4 of them as they go across that hook into these little latches here. So basically, you just got to lift it pretty much straight up about 2 inches, and that should free it up. Now we're going to carry it on out of here. Oh, and we probably have to do something with the seat belts first, so let's check that out. Okay, seat belts. The bottom, the rear ones here, they just pull straight out of the seat bottom, so no real issues there. This one was kind of hooked in with like a rubber elastic strap, so just getting that off, and then it came right out. So that was the middle one. Now the upper side, on the back, the ones on the sides aren't attached to the seat, so that's good, but the middle seat belt here does come down and it hooks into this little secondary seat belt here. So this one kind of gave me a little bit of trouble because there's no like button or anything, but what I figured out is it kind of splits in half, which I did. But ultimately, it looks like what it is, if you just push on the one side here, you know, if you put like a screwdriver or something into this crack where the 2 halves meet, and you push towards the top on, you see the side opposite of this little indentation here, then this little latch mechanism inside here, this little red latch mechanism inside, it kind of pushes out of the way. Let me see if I can get a good look at that. So you can see how it moves in there. And so once you push that, then this thing here comes off, and you should just be able to slip this out, back out the bottom. And we should be all set to finally get these back seats out. Alright, now that I have the rear seats removed, I can finally clearly see this is how they're attached to each other right here. Looks like there are 2 Torx bolts here, so I'm going to have to go see if I have anything that size. Get those 2 apart. But other than that, it came out pretty clean. What's not clean is underneath the seats. obviously it'd be a good time to kind of clean up in here, get rid of some of this dog hair, some of this trash. So we'll take care of that for sure before we install the new seats. Alright, now I don't know what size torque bits these are, but the biggest I've got is a T40, and that's nowhere near close enough, so it's bigger than that for sure. So I tried a couple different things. Flathead screwdriver, not really sure. I don't want to strip this out or really screw it up too much, so let's see if we can just maybe work around it. I'm going to start by taking off the old seat covers here as far as I can, so the bottom half here just unsnaps, and then that gives us access to these zippers here. So we're going to unzip those and work our way from there. Alright, so unhook the back, unhook the sides here. This is the seatbelt hook. It's on there, pretty simple as well. Unzip the thing, and now the problem I'm running into the old hogs rings. So see at least two of them here. Also the latch here on the side of the seat that does the seat bottom release. I'm not sure how to get at that yet, so let's start here with these two, and then we can. I already started shoving the fabric up underneath the seam there. We'll see how far that gets us. The screw out of the plastic piece there on the side. All this fabric is just tangled up in there. Aha! Found it. That's the clip. So this little thing goes way up here, and then it slides down underneath. Now with that free, now it comes out and around that way, and we can take the rest of this off. Now we finally have the back half, on the back corner of this side open. Now I can see down here there's some more of those hog rings. So I'm going to reach in there, try to pull those out. Or does this just pull straight out? Okay, so there's a little bar. It's got hooks on both sides. Basically, you just gotta fish that through these hogs rings. And back through the fabric. to do the other side of it here. Looks like a similar kind of idea, but I don't have access to the other corner yet. So let's see how much further we can get along, maybe on the back. Alright, same sort of idea back here too, it looks like. So again, you got the Hogs rings holding a little rod, and it's holding the whole bottom of the seat together there. Pry those Hogs rings off. Alright, that should, hopefully that's it for the back, we'll see. Or for the bottom. Back of the bottom of the back. Alright, so what we're dealing with here are all these little Hogs rings that are in there. Also have a bar that runs through and connects them. So you pull on that bar through the Hogs rings, but you need access to both sides of it because you need to help fish it through on the other end. So I got access to this full one. There's another one that goes here. There's another one that went across the back at the bottom down here. So I got those two out. Oh, it's looking like maybe this is how we're going to get this thing off. As you see, a couple screws there. So we'll go ahead and remove that. I did take one other screw out from over here, this little plastic piece. I'm not sure if that was necessary or not, but I had to kind of fish the other piece up and around it. So maybe we'll try taking this off, see how much further that gets us. Alright, found another hidden one. This one was tucked up underneath there. I don't know why I didn't see it, but it's the same deal as the one over here. So I think that is the key. Get that released, and then that should flop out this way, yes. And now the bottom half on this side is done. Got another little piece of the puzzle here. Looks like what's going on here is there's these smaller clips here on either side that were tucked down inside here on the bottom. I just pretty much just pulled on them until they came loose. Because as much as I'd like to try to get this thing out in one piece, if it doesn't come all the way out in one piece, it's fine. Looking at the new piece over here, though, from leatherseats.com, there's doesn't appear to be any of that here, so this one's just going to slip around. That's interesting. That's the first real difference I found, but yeah, you can see it also had these smaller, the other kind of clips that were tucked underneath here on the sides as well. So two more of those, and then it kind of just pulled off from there. We're getting close. Now I have access to this bar here on the side, and it's hog ring, so that's next. And then that should give me final access to the one across the middle, and we'll have the bottom of one seat off. Give yourself some time on this one. Alright, well that was loads of fun. Just got this thing off. So, get a closer look at what's going on in here. There's a metal rod embedded into the seat, and that's where you see some of these existing hog rings are already attached. And basically, there's a separate rod here that is threaded through those hog rings and also through the fabric, so it holds this rod, basically the one that's embedded in the seat there. But you can see both ends of this rod have these little hooks on them that keep it from coming out easily. So basically I just kind of try to fish these little hooks through those hog rings out as best I could, and I had to stretch the hog rings out where necessary. I did see in the official Leather Seats video that they just sliced these things along the seams, and maybe they had an easier time with it. Maybe that's the way to go, because see, I actually did just a tiny bit of damage on this one here where that embedded rod ripped out on the end just a little bit. I mean, I don't think it'll be really an issue, but that's maybe something to kind of keep in mind, that you can't be too rough with these things, or else that what's embedded in the foam here will rip right out, and then you'll have some real problems. If you do that too much, you're going to need a new seat. So, looking at the new ones, this is what leatherseats.com has given us. It's already got like sort of a plastic vinyl kind of rod that's already attached to the seat. So I believe the way they do it, I think they just hook around the existing one, the one that's embedded in the seat, and then through this fabric, and just attach them that way. So I don't think these slide out or anything like the factory ones. So I don't believe you need to keep the original rods, but that's the main part of it. So we get the bottom off of this seat, basically just rinse and repeat. Let's get the bottom off, or get the rest of everything else off, and then we'll take a look at installing it. Alright, what that was all about was trying to get this plastic piece here off. This blocks the side of the back of the seat, and I had to get one off on both sides. Unfortunately, because I can't separate the seats, it makes it even that much more difficult to get to them. But part of the problem is that there are these two hooks in here. There's like a little plastic hook that goes into these holes. There's no good way to get at them. And when I went to try to do this on the outside, actually both these broke. So I was trying to avoid doing that on the inside. Eventually I just kind of twisted it to the point where they popped off without breaking. I don't know how I managed to break both. The ones on the outside being more gentle than the ones on the inside, but that's the way it came out. So we're going to keep going. Alright, so now this is the top of the back seat of the single. So now that I have this one completely off, I think I'm going to go ahead and try to do the install on this one too, just to see how that goes. One tip for deinstallation though was all these hog rings that are attached here to this embedded piece of metal. What I found is if you use two pair of needle nose pliers, you can kind of get at both ends and stretch it. It's definitely a lot easier than when I was first going at it. I was just having one and trying to pull it. I think that also is going to help save some of the material here as well and not rip these things out. Let's go ahead and see what this looks like when we put the new piece on. Alright, so here's the new piece. It doesn't have holes yet for the headrest, which I think is kind of odd, but I did notice in the installation video they just basically cut them themselves. So I guess we'll put that on there and kind of line it up and do our best to not screw it up. But also too, I think the idea here, like I mentioned, we're going to try to attach these down in the same grooves with the hog rings and see how that goes. So I got one hog's ring attached in there. So basically I put it attached through the embedded piece first, and then kind of hooked it back over the seat cover itself. Then you got to work these hog rings pliers in there that you get in the kit, and they have some grooves there to kind of keep it in place and just pinch it. It is really tight, so it's kind of difficult. It's not going to be fun, I can tell you that much. Well, at least for this piece I got one down, 8 more to go. Alright, so we got the back of this seat on all the way. Basically just repeated the same process, and 9 of the hog rings, 3 across the middle, 3 across each side. That was not easy. Basically what it is you got these little hog rings here. So these are the hog rings here. They're super tiny. There's just not a whole lot of room to work, so it's like you kind of gotta hook it underneath the one that's already in there, and then kind of pierce it through the cover, and then like stretch it out as far as you can to the side, because then you have to get these big pliers in there. I mean, these things are massive. There's got to be a better tool than these. I did not enjoy using these so far. And actually these had a little spring in them too to keep them closed. I was having the other problem. I couldn't keep them open. I couldn't keep them open while I'm trying to dig this thing way deep down in there. So I went ahead and removed that spring. Honestly, I think it'd be better if the spring kept it open, because that way you can really kind of work it way down in there without them collapsing on you. Because you know, I couldn't, once they're closed, you can't get it around the hog ring. And then basically you just put that on either side like that, and crimp it. The next step is to cut the holes for the headrest. And now I remember from the video watching them do this online, this guy with all the confidence in the world took a razor blade to this thing and made the holes. I think it's going to be kind of nerve-wracking. I'm worried I'm going to overcut it. Sure, he's done it 1,000 times, but also he has access to multiple pieces of this seat cover. I don't. I only have one of each, you know, so I can't screw this up. Same thing has to be done down here on the sides too, where this back connects. There's a screw hole there that needs to be cut. So we'll give that a shot. Alright, so there's one headrest hole done. It really wasn't too bad. I do remember from the video that he kind of cut his really small and then kind of stretched it over it. So I tried to do the same, not overcut it. So I had initially cut a square out, maybe about the same size as this center piece here, and then just stretched it around the rest of it. The material is fairly stretchy, so that's good. But yeah, definitely be careful not to overcut. So we're going to do the same here and get that one done, and the two bolts on the side, and we should be done with the back of the one seat. Alright, well there's the other one. I'm pretty happy with that. Maybe I should have pulled it a little bit tighter to kind of get rid of some of this bulge here at the bottom, but it doesn't look too bad. And I think, yeah, I've heard that these things kind of form a little bit better once you get some heat on them. So maybe sitting in the sun, or also, you know, you can take like maybe not a heat gun, but a like a hair dryer to it as well. It's got to be really careful. I've heard that the vinyl is a little bit more susceptible to warping than the actual leather, so definitely don't want to go too high on the heat with this. All right, I think I'm giving in. I'm gonna have to go to the store and buy that giant Torx bit that I don't have. I'm not even sure what size it is, so I'm probably gonna have to buy a whole set just to make sure I get the right one. I mean, this thing would be a lot easier if I could separate these to begin with, you know. So I just have two bolts here I just cannot get off, and I need to get to this. There's a Phillips head screw right there, and there's just no way to get a screwdriver around this other piece to get to that one, you know, in order to take the back off of this one, because it slips over, you know, there's a hole there in the cover, so it has to come off. The back has to come off. I have to get to this screw, so I need to get this thing here apart. So I'm gonna make a quick trip to Lowe's and buy a whole set of Torx bit just so I can have that one. Nothing frustrates me more than needing to buy a special tool just for one job. I just got back from Lowe's. Got my T50 is what it takes. Went ahead and bought the 45 and the 50 just in case, and it turns out, yeah, it's the 50. Went ahead and sprung the extra $1 or so for the security, the TT50. Just in case I ever do come across one of those, I'd rather have that one. So this will work for the non-security Torx that we got here, and I'll have it in my toolbox for probably never need it again. Alright, let's do it. Backs of these seats are on there with the T40, so that's the to mention that's the biggest size I already had. Alright, and the back seat is done. It's been a project. Definitely took quite a while. Basically just the reverse of what I showed you, taking it off. And mostly just putting those hog rings in took the majority of the time. Would be nice if they made a set of needle nose hog rings. I did look online and found one pair that's like that on Amazon, and they want like $50 for it. Now, if I was going to do this every day, absolutely, because this was such a pain. There's a lot of work, and honestly I feel like everything with this was just a struggle. Like, I had to put a lot of effort, a lot of muscle into everything. Getting those hog ring pliers down deep enough into the seat was probably the worst of it. But then even zipping it up and just stretching all the leather and everything definitely took some time. So it's about 8:45 now, so this took me about 8 hours just to do the back seat, and I haven't even done the headrest yet. And the back seat is not yet installed, obviously, as you can tell. It's in the garage. So I'm going to go ahead and vacuum real quick before it gets any later. Get the rest of the dirt and stuff out of the back of the truck. Hopefully I can get the headrest done today too. They don't look so bad. I think that's going to be fairly easy. But on the other hand, they sold a special tool for that too, where you need a vacuum compressor, which I have an air compressor. I have a shop vac. I'm not sure if either of those will work. So just like I've done everything else here, I'm just gonna try to muscle it on there. Yeah, I'm exhausted after this whole thing. My back hurts, my arms and everything, just from pulling and twisting and bending over. Yeah, there's no way I could have done front seats in the same day. And the front seats are going to be more complicated with all those heater stuff, so that's probably going to take me a whole day, probably, for each seat. But we'll see. Let's go ahead and get this thing installed and wrap it up for today.
The next day.
Alright, and just like that, the back seats are all done. I think it looks fantastic. These things really bring a lot of class to the inside of the vehicle. Makes it look like a much more expensive, luxurious kind of vehicle. They're super soft. Truly a pleasure to sit in. I did wrap up the headrest the other day while I was working on it. These actually went pretty quick. As far as the two on the outside, the old ones just snap right off. The new ones fit right back on the same way. I'll show you when I get to the ones on the front seat, because they go on the same way. The only one I had a little bit of trouble with was the center one. I do recall from the videos I saw online that some headrests you don't cut the fabric off, and this one was one of those. The center headrest here, the fabric was really sewn on there and glued on there. There's no getting that fabric off, so in cases like that you just put the new fabric right over top of the old one. But I think it went on pretty well. Overall, I'm really happy with it. There are a few little wrinkles. Some of that will come out as it heats up in the sun, but overall I think it's really good looking. The finish is pretty good. I got a little bit of sand in here because we went jet skiing yesterday already, but totally jealous that I didn't get to ride in the back seat during a 3-hour drive each way to Marco Island. So because of that, got a little bit of time today, and I'm gonna get to work on this driver's seat. Hopefully between today and tomorrow, maybe I can get this seat knocked out. And hopefully I don't have to drive it without a seat, because that won't be too fun. Luckily I have plenty of other cars. We should be able to get by. So I think we're going to start here with getting these bolts out. Looks like probably some 14s again. I think I'm going to try to touch this paint up down here a little bit too. It's going to get a little bit of corrosion. See what, I don't know if I can do anything about that. But I think it's just 2 bolts in the front, 2 bolts in the back, probably some clips underneath. And we'll get this thing out of here. Alright, and to get access to these rear bolts, they do have these covers on there. Basically the only thing holding them in is this clip. So what I did was I just took a flathead screwdriver, and you can access the clip from the front of the bracket. So you see that little hole right there. I just kind of stuck the screwdriver through that hole until you hear it pop, and then that should be enough to release this clip, and then you can just pull it straight out. So now I have access to my rear bolts. I also did see that this seat has an airbag in it. So I'm going to go ahead and disconnect the battery before I disconnect the seat, just to make sure that when I unhook it, when I rehook it, that I don't have any issues with that airbag going off on me. Alright, electrical wires, pretty simple. One main one coming up out of the ground here. It was taped to this support here, so I just cut the tape. I'll re-electrical tape it back on there. A little tape above and below. The main connector here, pretty straightforward. Just push on that underneath and it pops right out. The next one over here actually has a connector on the seat. Push there, and then it slides out. And then the last one here was this is the airbag one. Just got up underneath the ridge here and applied some force pulling back as I pushed in on that white part, and it started to move. That should be it. We should get this thing out of here. Alright, got the seat out. So I think I'm going to start with trying to get the back off here, so which means I need to get this cover off. There's one on both sides. See a little screw there. So we'll start there, and also too I see these little elastic bands here holding the bottom of the back on. So that's where we're going to start our disassembly. You see some access to a few more screws here. So we'll get those removed and start working on trying to get this back of the seat off. I also see a zipper up the side here, so that'll probably help as well. Alright, one side off. Basically there's just a screw on the back, screw on the top, and then this little bit here hooks around underneath, so just stick your finger underneath there and pop it out, and it should give us access to these bolts. I'm assuming these must be what holds on the back of the seat. So we're going to flip it over and try to do the same on the other side. Alright, other side is off. So basically it had just the one screw back here that you could see. Underneath you have to get access to a screw that's in this bracket here as well. You see how rusted all this is getting. This from jumping in and out of the truck after being wet with salt water, you know, launching the jet skis and such. I'm going to see if I can lube that up with something, try to protect it. And then of course things get a little bit more complicated. Not too bad, but with the wiring here, basically just this little clip was tucked up in here. If you depress the two outsides, you know, on the long side, it should slide out, and then these other two clips are pretty self-explanatory with the little release in the center, and then pull them out. Alright, I'm gonna undo these brackets, these bolts here, and see if we can get that rear seat removed, or the rear of the seat removed. Alright, with those two bolts removed on either side, the seat back does come off. Then I undid the zipper, and that gave me access to this channel bit here that's holding on the back, to the other piece wherever it went. But basically just kind of stick a screwdriver down in between there and you can pry these two pieces apart. Now I'd like to completely separate these. I still got these two wires hanging on. This one here should be fairly straightforward because I just unplug it, but this other one is the airbag wire, and there's no harness between the main, there's no connector between the main part up here and the back of the seat, so I got to undo each one of these little spots that are holding it on there. Dealing with these clips is never fun, but I think it's the same sort of idea. Just kind of pinch them and try to slide them back out. So I'm gonna give that a shot. Maybe try some needle nose pliers over top of the screwdrivers this time. Alright, and finally success. We have two separate pieces. Yeah, this airbag wire did end up being a little bit of a pain, but I think what I realized though was that you can, if you can see there, if this focuses, you can go at it from the side here with a screwdriver, and you have enough leverage there on the side that you can actually pry it from underneath instead of having to go from this side. You can stick your screwdriver in on the side where it's connected and push those things out of the way. So that helps out a lot. Alright, and with that out of the way, I think we're just going to go ahead and strip the covers off and get to it. Alright, and now with the back off, the seat cover back off, I can see the front seats here are constructed much differently than the rear ones were. For one, these have Velcro holding them in at all the gaps, aside from just the main center one. That's the only one that looks similar to the back with the hog rings. Also too, on the side with the airbags, it has these extra little holes here, and basically it has these straps that go around here to both sides, And so basically there's some straps on there that you just have to remove. They come out easily enough. And then on the rear, since this is the driver's side, a more complicated one, this one's got the lumbar support, so you can see that mechanism here. That's what this looks like. I did ask about this when the leather seats rep called me. I asked him, how am I, is this seat compatible with the cooling system? And he said that it was, but the only thing was is that you can't hook it up to the center like you normally would. Normally you put the inlet somewhere here, but because of this mechanism here, he said you have to install it off to the side, and that should work just fine. So probably somewhere in this area is where I'm going to be installing that inlet bit for the back. But got that all taken care of. Now I'm going to take a look and see what I think is going to be the plan of attack as far as getting the cooled system installed on this one. Oh, actually I think I'll go ahead and strip the bottoms first, because I do want to get that bottom foot there painted with some black paint before it gets too dark. So let's do that real quick and then get that touched up, and then we'll come back and reevaluate. Alright, so this is where things get fun. After tackling the back seat, I was feeling kind of confident about the upholstery. That's not a problem anymore. But now we'll start working on getting this heated and cooled system installed. So here's the little templates that they give you. You see it actually doesn't, it's smaller than the actual cooling system itself. I just rewatched the entire official leatherseats.com installation video on this. They didn't use the template, but what they did draw around the outside of this, and then they kind of drew in about a 3/8 of an inch or so, which is what that is, and that's where they actually cut. So I think that's why they gave you the template. So the idea is to kind of install this probably right about there-ish, so that way we're only covering up the one set of connection points here, as far forward as we can get it without covering up this one, and that's where we're going to go. So I'm going to go ahead and mark it. I've got a razor blade, kind of got it set to a lower setting here so we don't dig too deep into it, and I'm just going to follow the same kind of instructions that they did on the video. So I'm going to slice it down, cut little squares out, rip them out, and we'll see how this goes. So wish me luck. Alright, so just like they showed in the original video, I'm just kind of putting it in there and dragging it on down, making about a 3/8 of an inch cut. So far so good. And then once I get done doing all of these, about a little more than a 1/4 inch across, I'll go back and do this way too, and then that'll make little squares, and we should just be able to rip them out. So now that all the left to right ones are done, we're gonna go do these other ones the opposite direction. You can see already the foam is kind of starting to rip out by itself. And I guess the idea is once we get all those done, you should just be able to just rip little squares out like that. Seems easy enough. Alright, and as far as ripping these out, I mean, that goes pretty smooth too. Just pretty much peel and rip, and they all come out roughly about the same depth. Now in the official video, he used some sort of tool to smooth this flat. But he did say that wasn't really necessary. So I don't know if it's not necessary why he did it. Maybe just to make it look better on camera. Yeah, and ignore my black fingers. That's from spray paint. So I'm not sure if that would really make a difference or not. I mean, he said looks. He said he wouldn't be able to tell a difference from seeing it, from looking at it. But I don't know if you'll be able to feel a difference, or if that makes a difference in the performance of the system either. I don't think I have anything like that. I mean, I have a sanding disc on an angle grinder that's probably too aggressive, so I think we're gonna just try to get by without it. So I've test fitted this pad in there. I think it sits a little high still. I did find that I have this little grinding wheel attachment for my Dremel. I started using that here on about 1/4 of it so far, and you can see it did kind of smooth it out quite a bit. It definitely looks better than it does without it, and I'm hoping that's going to kind of help have it set a little more level. So I'm going to go ahead and just keep going with that. Kind of see how this works though. Alright, so I'm going to finish off the rest of the seat bottom like that, and then we'll see how it fits. Alright, so that definitely does make it look quite a bit better. It's a lot smoother like that. I do like the look of that a lot better. So yeah, with that, I think this sits in there pretty much like that. It's fairly flush. I think I'm pretty happy with it. So I think we're going to go ahead and go with that. So next step, I believe, is finding a place to mount the TED unit, which is the thermal something device. So it's going to go in here somewhere, and that's what's going to create the hot and the cold air. Thermal electric device, I guess. It's basically a mini heat pump. Alright, so here's the basic components of the system. This is the TED unit, this is the blower, and then we have the control module. So basically 3 different parts. The idea here is to try to keep it away from anything that's going to interfere with the normal seat operation. So this is the little screw worm here that adjusts the seat back and forth, so I don't want to get too close to that. Other than that, over here too, I have the normal wiring mounts for the rear of the seat, and also this is where the airbag is going to go, the airbag wire. So I need to keep that in mind. So it's looking like maybe the only suitable spot is kind of right here in the middle, in between these springs. So I'm thinking, you know, cut the hole here to attach the vent. The intake is the shorter end, from what I gather watching the video, and the exhaust is the longer end. So we're going to mount that about like that. Have some holes here that they use zip ties on in the official video to connect it to the springs. Here's the blower. Mount that back here behind this. Gonna have to put the vent tube on here to connect the blower to the TED, and then connect it using the zip ties again. And kind of similar to what they did in the video, they didn't use the third one, they actually cut it off. I think I'm going to be in a kind of a similar situation because there's no place really for this to go, and the seat bottom does have to hook over top of this, so it's going to be a little bit of trial and error get this in there. Yeah, and then the last piece, the control module, can pretty much go anywhere. I have plenty of room. I could maybe go here with it, or I have all this like empty space up there. I can mount it up there as well. So we'll see how that goes. But for now, let's go ahead and let's get started with getting the blower and the TED unit, the main part of it, installed and connected. So basically I just need to cut a hole here for this and run that through. Alright, so here's the deal. The next part requires me to attach the TED, the cooling side, to the vent tube, so that way I can run it up through the seat cushion where I already drilled the hole. Now the problem I'm having is that no matter how hard I push, I could not get this thing in there. It just doesn't fit. The guy in the video just seemed to snap it in. Now it fits over this side perfectly. This side's got like a little lip, but that's the exhaust side. You don't even need that. The intake side, it fits there. The smaller end of this fits perfectly over the blower. See, the blower has that little lip. Actually, it fits so good I test fitted it, and then I almost couldn't get it off. I had to use a screwdriver. However, the cooling side or heating side of the TED unit does not have that lip, and it just does not fit at all. No matter which way I turned it, I didn't really want to cut it and try any of these other joints, but I think that they're all roughly the same size. You can see there's a larger one and a smaller one, if that focuses. Yeah, larger one there and a smaller one there. But they're all kind of pretty much the same all the way down the line. So what I ended up doing was I got my heat gun out, and it probably heated it longer than I needed to, but it doesn't really take much. And then just kind of heated this up, and then when it was hot, just slipped this in there, and it's a perfect fit. So now it fits just fine. And also on the video too, they used he used some screws. He called them Stinger screws. I think it's just a name brand. So I found some similar size screws to what I saw him use, just little flat ones. So here's the little screw that I used here. He clipped the tip of it off with a pair of dikes. I did the same. I did not know that these were called dikes. I always just call them like snippers or wire cutters or something. I never heard of them called dikes, but so anyways, I clipped those, and so I'm going to attach them here. I did notice that after doing all this, then I had some gaps along the front side and the back, and I don't want to lose any air. I want as much of that going to the seat as possible, so I'm going to go ahead and seal that up with some silicone. I'm going to just basically just run a bead of silicone all around this, jam this on there, and then screw it in. Alright, so now I've got the TED unit inserted in here. Still haven't gotten it bolted down yet. I can show you what it looks like on the other side here. Basically, that's it. It looks goofy. And basically, he said you want to leave yourself about a 1/2 inch to 3/4 inch. Like I said, you can always cut it shorter, but you can't cut it longer. So we're just going to cut the thing here about there-ish. And then that's going to give us room to run it up into the distribution pad. Alright, so we got the vent tube installed. Cut the size. I did leave a little bit of extra room on the bottom because you can see the way this is. I think I want it to kind of sit in line with the blower, so it's going to have to kind of sit straight like that. So that's why I left a little bit extra space down here, so that way then the blower will sit here and everything can kind of be level. So next up will be placing the distribution pad. So it's got holes in it. That's what's going to come out where it's going to distribute the hot or cold air through the perforated leather. I did notice that one side is a little bit closer to the edge of the distribution pad than the other, so I went ahead and marked that with an arrow because I want that to be the front, because the back is probably going to tuck up under the back of the seat a bit. And then you pretty much just lay it down and fold it up and kind of try to mark the location. We're going to get a hole cut out on the bottom similar to this, and that's going to allow us to get this thing sit down over top of that and siliconed in. Alright, so we went ahead and got the hole cut out on the bottom. You can see still has the membrane inside there. It's roughly about the size of the hole. We're going to place silicone around this to seal it here tight. I'm also going to, just like they did in the other video, I'm going to spray the entire thing with the adhesive. I got a can of that from leatherseats.com. It came in part of the install kit. So I'm going to spray this whole thing, peel the stick tape, silicone around the hole, and stick it on there. And it looks like it should fit pretty good. Pretty happy with it. I did sit in it. You don't feel that plastic piece either, so I was kind of concerned about that, but I didn't feel it at all sitting on the seat. So I think we're in pretty good shape. Now we have the silicone applied to the hole, sprayed everything else with the adhesive, and just set that on down in there and press it in firmly. And that spray adhesive should take effect pretty quick. I already feel it kind of grabbing and holding, and then the silicone will take a little bit of time to dry. Cool. Got most of the bottom done. Next, I guess we'll move on to hooking up the blower. Alright, and so back on the underside here, I went ahead and just cut the little piece of vent that we needed. That was pretty simple because they have these short pieces already sized out with the appropriate connector for the TED and for the blower. So just cut that. It fits in there pretty good. And next, I think we're just gonna zip tie it down. Gonna go one here around this back, one here, over here, over here, over here. Zip tie the connections on the vents, and then also probably just zip tie the whole vent down to this this little white plastic mount that's underneath. All right, I'm starting to take a look here at the control module and the wiring. So the wiring harness, it does look a little intimidating at first, but once you start to hook it up to things, it doesn't seem so bad. Basically, these two obviously go in here. And then from there, we have two sets of pigtails, two connectors like this. Basically, there's a slightly smaller one and a larger one. Looks like I think the smaller one goes to the TED, and the larger one goes to the blower. So basically you have two sets of those, short end and a long end. And then from there we also have this connector goes out to the switch that controls the whole thing. So it's got a connector like that. This is your heated and cooled on off. See if that focuses. I don't know, this thing does not like to focus on close-ups. So basically it's heat, cool, and you'll have 3 different levels of each of those. And then also the only other connector that's on here is this one. This is just 2 wires, power and ground. So that part doesn't seem, oh, it's actually, sorry, that was the extra wire. This is the power and ground. So they do give you this extra connector here that plugs into that connector, and then that kind of just runs a long set of wires, basically to bare wires where you can connect it anywhere into your 12-volt system. They recommend obviously finding a 12-volt accessory wire, something that's only on when the key's on, and then they also give you a fuse in here too. So get an inline fuse. Let's see what size. It's a 15 amp fuse, so not very big, and some extra zip ties. So it doesn't look too difficult, but my thoughts is that if I mount this up here, I'll have enough wire to connect the bottom ones. I got plenty of wire there, but it's not much longer on the back, and I don't know how far I'm going to have to go up the back yet. So I'm going to hold off on mounting this until I figure out what I'm doing with the back of the seat. Basically, it's going to be the same sort of idea here. We're going to just rinse and repeat. On the front, we're going to start with lining the area for the cooling pad, slice it, cut it, find mounting positions for it, cut the holes, and like I mentioned too, it's going to be a little bit different on this one because of this lumbar support. So somehow, probably going to have to put the TED unit over in this area is what I'm thinking, because this whole thing can slide up and down, and that's what provides that lumbar support. Yeah, I'm not sure exactly how I'm going to have to mount this TED unit, but I'll show you when I get it done. Alright, so this is the back of the driver's side seat. This is the lumbar support system here. I've been staring at this for a while now. Basically, the way that this lumbar support system works is there's this motor here that pulls this cable, and basically kind of does, not quite that motion, but when it tightens the cable, it pushes that lumbar, this plastic support piece into the back of the seat. So you can see approximately how that works. Now, when I talked to the leatherseats.com guys, they said that they installed the TED unit off center over in this area. If you do that, I'm not sure where exactly you would hook it. I mean, you could try hooking it onto this bar, but I'm worried that if you connect it to this, that might interfere with the lumbar support system. Then you could drill a hole over here. I guess you could run some strapping like they did in the demo video on the, I think it was Silverado that they worked on. I don't actually have any on me at the moment. And even then, if you do that, then you still have to find a place for the exhaust. So the exhaust is going to come down, and you can't really go underneath of this because everything under here, you can't really go underneath of this. Everything under here is used for this system, which is puts the seat back forward and backwards. And there's like gear drives and stuff underneath of there that I'd rather not run through. The other option, you can kind of try to maybe bend the exhaust and have it come out here, but then there's also going to be a pocket on the back of the seat. So do you exhaust it into the pocket, or do you just sew the pocket shut in that area? It's not really a good solution. So what I'm thinking is, I noticed this little cutout here. That looks like that may be for the factory heated and cooled system, if you had one from the factory. So I'm guessing that must be where it goes through, and that's more centered. I'd rather have it here anyways, because that's going to be, I think it's going to give you more even distribution. Just got to kind of be careful about not interfering with this system. I've kind of played around with this a little bit. This whole lumbar support system seems to slide up and down. Not mechanically, but it's just kind of sitting there freely. You can move it one way or the other. See, it kind of goes that way, but if you push too far up, it'll come off the tracks. And if you kind of go down, it's got a lot of room on the underside. I'm not sure exactly how high up this thing is supposed to be. And it's like I said, it seems to kind of just go back and forth. So I think I'm just going to kind of pull it up here to about its highest setting, which I'm tall anyways, so my lumbar support would be higher in my back than maybe most people. So I think I'm just going to kind of pull it up here to where it's highest, put the hole right through the middle of this, attach the TED here to the outside of this. Now I was feeling on the passenger side, this beam is, you can feel that inside the pocket. But I don't think that's going to be a big deal. And then we'll run the exhaust right along this beam and maybe out through the bottom of the back of the seat. So that'll give us the blower fan up here somehow. TED system down here. You're going to have to run the exhaust there, the vent down along the same wire, but I'm hoping that that'll stay kind of elevated off of that wire, and that it won't really rub too much. And honestly, I don't really adjust the lumbar that much anyways. I kind of just set it to its maximum and leave it. I think that's the plan. Maybe we'll mount the control module. Oh, well, yeah, I guess I only have one control module for the whole seat, so they'll still go underneath. There's not one for each TED. It's just one for the seat. Okay, so let's give this a shot. About to reach the point of no return. Once you cut that hole, there's no going back. Alright, so we're all set and done here with the seat back on the driver's side. So I did end up running it through that hole. I think it's going to be fine. Like, I have about a 1/2 inch on the top and maybe 1/4 inch on the bottom. So if that slides around a little bit, like I said, I don't think it's going to slide up anymore, maybe slide down a little bit, but I should have some room there to play with. And then also too, the way I kind of installed this, I tried to keep it elevated off of the lumbar support system, so there's actually about a 1/2 inch between the vent tube here and that spring for the lumbar system. So again, I think we're going to be alright there. I had to cut away just a little bit of the foam up here at the top to get the fan input on. I was initially going to put the fan on the other way, but then I was thinking that it may suck the fabric of the back of the seat in. So at least here there's about an inch gap on the other side. It has plenty of room to breathe air in. And then just ran the zip ties up through the mount up here. And like I said, I kind of like spider legged with like 4 zip ties down here to kind of keep this thing under a lot of tension to make sure it stays floating. And then the exhaust tube here, I'm not exactly sure what I'm going to do with it just yet. I think I'm going to make that decision once I get the seat cover on, because I'm not sure if that's going to have to come out the bottom or if I need to kind of bend it and make it come exactly out the back. So we'll see how that lines up once everything's back together, but it should be good enough for now. I think I should be able to start assembling the seat covers next. So I'll probably do the base and then get the back and then marry the two together and see where we end up. Alright, 2 last things before I actually get started on this. Well, 3, because 1, I know it's dirty, it's a mess in here, and it kind of got like a trash pile going, but I got a broom and a dustpan, I'll sweep it up when I'm done. So the first real one here is, you see these little things, I got basically 2 of them this size. That's all I've got left over from doing the one seat. So you get 4 of those full-length tubes, and really you don't have much to spare. If you're talking about, that's all I've got left from both of them. I actually had to use part of the first half just to get the exhaust tube on this one. And the other thing I wanted to mention too was they did talk about you had to delete the center hold, the center like hog's ring location once you install the seats. So they do give you this breathable mesh already when you order the perforated leather along with the heated and cooling system. Otherwise you have to buy this separately, but for whatever reason they still do install this, which is where that center hog rings would go. So I'm just going to go ahead and cut that out so that way I'm not sitting on that. But that's it, and let's get started assembly. All right, and we got the seat cover on the front seat. I definitely do need to go back and get some of these wrinkles out with, like I said, a steamer or maybe a hair dryer. Actually, maybe I can straighten that out a little bit. But either way, so we got the front seat cover back on. I think it looks amazing. I don't have it completely buttoned up yet because there's a couple things around back here that I'm still working on. For instance, I left that vent. I hadn't done anything with that yet because I was trying to figure out where I wanted to do that. It looks like I can just take it straight down, which I think is going to be the cleanest option. So that way you shouldn't see the vent when you're sitting in the back seat. So the two things I left here I didn't button up yet is the exhaust port, and it looks like that is going to be able just to clear straight down. So I think that'll look cleaner anyways. That's where I wanted to put it. And the exhaust will come out the bottom instead of coming out the back, so you won't see it when you're sitting in the back seat. Number two is on the underside. And number two is on the underside. I just realized I'd left this flap here off, and that had to get connected under there. So I basically lost all the mounting points that I had for this fan. Now, I could maybe poke some holes through the leather and reattach it here, but then it's going to be, you know, sucking in the blower is going to be right next to the exhaust on the other one. So I think what I'm going to try to do instead is maybe flip it around so that that way the blower is towards the front of the seat and the exhaust comes out the back, so that way both the exhausts are pointing towards each other and I'm not sucking hot or cold air or vice versa into the blower, but just more ambient air. Those are the things I got left to do. And I still haven't hooked up the wiring harness yet, or reattached all the factory wiring harness. So let's get that done. Alright, so it's a new day. I got a little tired last night. It was about 1:30 in the morning when I finished working on this. Basically got everything with the seat here wrapped up, other than this exhaust port, and I still need to do the controller box. But all the wires from the back of the seat ran down, so I should be able to continue with that. What I'm focusing on now is this exhaust port. I did cut the hole in the back, so you can see through the plastic here, through the back cover, through the back of the seat, so it comes straight down. I think that looks pretty good, but it kind of comes in. This whole piece is at like an angle, and right now it's kind of facing straight down. So they have these little exhaust port things that are supposed to kind of go on there, along with the vent cover to kind of make it look nice like that. You know, that'll look pretty good. However, I kind of need it at somewhat of an angle to match the angle of this. So I was kind of working here prototyping with this little extra exhaust piece that I have. Basically what I did was I cut it at about a 45-degree angle on the end there, and then I heated it up with the heat gun and just kind of crammed it in there. I plan on attaching it with some screws, you know, underneath, and some silicone as well around there. And the idea is hopefully then that'll make this inside part of the vent sit at the angle that we need to make it kind of more flush with this, and then I can cap it off with the exhaust vent cover on the outside and make it look clean. That's what we're going to attempt to do now. Alright, and here's the finished product. It was a little bit of a struggle to get that in there, and I ended up cutting the tube a little bit shorter than what I had, so the hole was a little bit misplaced, so I got a little bit of a gap down here that I'm not thrilled about. And it's not exactly sitting flush, but when this thing is sitting upright in the back seat, yeah, you're not even going to see it. I mean, just going to see the bump sticking out there, protruding a little bit. Overall, I think it's pretty good. I ended up just connecting it with a couple screws. I used 3 screws on it instead of going with the silicone. I don't really care if it leaks a little bit. I think it's in good shape. You know, as good as you're going to get. It's difficult with a custom installation, but I'm happy with it. Last we got to do is hook up the controller module. Alright, so this is what I ended up deciding on for the control module. So it's underneath this flap here. There's already a factory mount point on the back of the seat, which was used on this side over here for the airbag and the other wires. Maybe if you had more options on a Deluxe truck, you might be using this, but since I don't have any, there's a couple mounts there. And then the side of this control module has 2 mounts, but the other side has nothing. That's because leatherseats.com, they reuse OEM parts. I think they mentioned maybe this is like out of a Ford or something. So maybe if you had a Ford, it would fit perfectly somewhere, but here I'm kind of doing what I can. So no mounts to hold it on the side, so I looped it around the whole thing here, through that mount on the back, and then to the seat brace on this side. And then I think once I go ahead and put the carpet down, you kind of bungee that down, that'll help hold it in place as well. And it should be pretty secure in there. I don't think it's going to really move around too much. And the carpet has plastic in it, so that should help it keep it protected from maybe getting kicked by the back seat passenger if they slide their foot up underneath of here. But it really doesn't stand too much more proud than the other side. So I think it's a pretty good shape. And then we should just be able to connect the wires here. Figure out how we're gonna connect these off to the sides and get these extra wires here out of the way. And then basically what we need to run out of here, right? This would be the cable for the switch, and then here's the power component. So those two things are the only things going to be coming out of the seat, and I'll try to run those back underneath the carpet somehow, kind of like the way the factory wiring went. And finally, the driver's seat is done. The only thing I got hanging out of it is just the one cable that goes to this power switch. It's gonna go somewhere in the center console, so that is left on a long lead. But everything else turned out really well. I'm gonna see what I can do maybe later on about getting some of these wrinkles out if they don't come out within a couple weeks of being in the sun. But overall, I think it looks really good. It is a bit of a struggle, but everything is pretty much done. You can see the back there. It says you won't really notice that too much, just a little bit of a bump. All that's left is the headrest. And now the two on the back, on the main passenger seats in the back, the headrest came off, but the one in the center, it did not. And these front seats look like they're kind of more towards kind of in line with what the center of the back seat had, where it's sewn and glued on there. There's no removing this old cover. So I'm just going to have to go around it. Now the other ones kind of had a similar system to what leatherseats.com gave us here, with a couple these like latch. So basically you just kind of loop one over the other and they lock down. So on the back seats I could just unhook that and take it off, but when these are sewn on like that you can't. So I know that they mentioned on their website that some of these you have to leave on, so this is one of those. So I'm just going to put this on over top of it and latch it down. And the seat covers on the headrest, I still need to hook it. So basically you just kind of fold those over top of each other, and they'll latch down there. It takes quite a bit of force, but you can kind of see how it looks. I need to kind of straighten it out just a little bit, but really not too bad. I know that they sell a system to like vacuum seal these to make them easy to put on, but honestly I didn't find it to be that difficult. These things actually really squish quite a bit if you put like all your weight on it. You can see how much that deforms. So not too bad. Alright, and there's the headrest all done. This is obviously the fourth one that I've done now, but I did find a little trick here was if you kind of use a screwdriver to hold that channel open, it makes it a lot easier to slot one into the other. So all set and ready to go there. It's going to attach to the seat, put the seat back in the truck, and then all that'll be left is the couple wires to put in the battery and put in the switch and put in the power supply. Alright, and I've got the seat in place. I don't have it bolted down yet because I decided to spray paint the bolts and make them look a little bit newer. So they're drying right now. We got it sitting in place, and now we're looking at where we can start installing the switch. Thinking I'd like to have the switch here, and then I can have a matching one for the passenger seat over there. It just seems like a good place. It's next to all the rest of the buttons. It should be fairly easy to get to. I can see it while I'm driving for both seats, so if for whatever reason the passenger side gets left on when I don't have a passenger anymore, I can still access it and turn it off if I'd like. So in order to do that, I'm working on taking out the center console. I already just unscrewed the shift knob Started prying from back here in the center console here, and it looks like this whole centerpiece should come off, and then we're going to see if that maybe gives us access to underneath of this silver part and how we can get to there. Alright, so that just, once you pried that up, it pretty much just the rest of it came right out. Good thing is too, there's also an outlet here, and I did just check this. This only has power when the ignition is on. So that's exactly what I'm looking for as far as power goes, and it's in a prime location because it's right here in the center console, easy to get to. So I'm going to splice into the back of that, and that's where I'm going to get power to both seats. And run my inline fuses off of that circuit. So that's good. Now we just got to figure out how to get access here to the silver part. I see some screws down here, and see what we can do. I don't know what happened. I just blacked out. No, seriously. Turns out that getting to behind those silver panels is a real pain. You basically have to disassemble the entire dash. It was way more than I want to walk through on camera. But I did watch a fantastic video on how to do that by Nitro Z18 Fishing. I'll link the video to that below. It's about a 25-minute video if you care to watch to see how to disassemble the entire thing. As Doug DeMuro would say, here's a neat little quirk and feature. But people don't know that there's a little Texas stamp underneath all that. I think that's pretty neat. Wouldn't have known that otherwise. Alright, so basically where I want to install these on the silver panel, there's plastic pieces again underneath. It seems like they're hollow, so I should be able to just cut holes in these under panels and still run the wires, and probably like down along the sides and then up the tunnel here and under the carpet. That's the plan anyways. You do have to kind of watch out because the climate vents here on either side are right behind this as well, but I think in this actual plastic piece here they're hollow. I can kind of feel around there a little bit. I'm going to cut those out, and there should be enough room to put the switches in. Really, I got to cut through two pieces. I got to cut through the silver and then through the black back panel. So I'm going to make the hole in the black back panel bigger because they're actually going to be attached to the silver piece. All right, so let's get that done. Not sure what tool I'm going to use yet. Maybe the Dremel. We'll see. All right, so here's what I decided to do. I traced the template, and then I drilled holes in all the corners to kind of be able to cut straight edges. Use the Dremel. Unfortunately, I screwed up. See, this one here fits well, but you can see where I dug into the plastic with the Dremel. That sucks. I did try to cover it up a little bit with some marker that I have that's pretty close in color, but you can still see it, and it's going to bother me. So that's not fun. I think I'm going to end up having to order a whole new centerpiece here. I see you can buy them brand new for about $200. I'm going to see if maybe I can get one from a junkyard somewhere. Maybe keep an eye out on eBay for a used one. But anyways, at least for today, we're going to soldier on. I'll finish cutting this, and then have to cut the holes in the back panel too. Alright, and I even tried switching from the cutting wheel to this little thing, some sort of like grinding tool. Thought that would help out, and I did pretty well until almost the end. It slipped out and marked this side up too. So maybe the Dremel's not the way to go. Still not sure what the correct best way to do it is. I think they used maybe a file. I guess, that'd be a lot slower. Slow is good. Slow makes less mistakes. So maybe slow would cost me less, $200 less, and also it's not easy to take apart this whole dash. Other than the couple nicks, this will be a little bit less pronounced once the thing's in there. I'm pretty happy with the button placement. Ironically, I chose this spot because I had a little tiny scratch in this already from when the truck was used. About the truck used, it had a little scratch there already. So, I'll just cut that out and it'll be good as new. Nope, screwed up worse. Alright, anyways, this looks pretty decent other than the couple issues. So we're going to go ahead and cut the holes in the rest of the dash and get this thing reinstalled. Alright, so back inside the truck. I know it looks dark, but really it's only 6 o'clock. It's winter time, so things getting dark early. So apologize for the light. But basically, it turns out that these silver pieces actually stand proud of this quite a bit, like maybe 1.5 inches or so. So I think I got lots of room. I don't actually need to cut a hole for the back of the switch, but I do need to cut holes for the wires. So, and they got these giant plugs on them too. So went ahead and cut holes large enough here to fit these plugs through. And just gotta watch out for, there's the cooling ducts. It actually runs underneath. These two are connected. So I'm going to run that through and snake it on down here by the driver's side footwell into the center console. Once I get that in place, basically I should just be able to reassemble. And then, like I mentioned, I'm going to use the cigarette lighter here in the center as my power source. Alright, so the only other thing left is the wiring on this. And I went ahead and set it up. It was dark when I did it, so I didn't film it, but I'll give you a quick overview of how this all goes together. It's actually fairly simple. So down here, I remove this panel with the gear lever. It's pretty simple. I went over that already. Basically, you have one wire coming in here. That's the red one that connects directly to the battery. So I snaked it up underneath the lower dash there, and that comes in and goes to this little relay, which I've attached here just with a zip tie. It's all out of the way, so it doesn't really matter what it looks like, but it holds it in there pretty well. So that's going to provide power to our seats. The other thing that we need is accessory power, which there's the cigarette lighter here. I tapped into that, and as I mentioned, this is only on when the ignition is on. So that provides accessory power to the relay. So the way these relays work, they're basically just little electronic switches. So when accessory power is provided to one of the pins, it'll allow the current to flow through the main power on the other pin. So basically, you just need accessory power to one pin, main power to the other pin, a ground, and then your item that's being controlled. So the seats come up and they're connected to the other pin on that. So it's all in here. It's all pretty compact. I'll do a wiring diagram and show that on the screen here. But that's all there really is to that. It's actually pretty simple. Basically, it just comes down to one wire to the battery. Alright, and so this is the finished product. I think overall it came out really good. There are maybe a few more wrinkles that I really didn't address. I didn't do anything about, but I think the Florida sun will kind of heat some of that up and some of those wrinkles will come out. But overall, I think it looks fantastic. Looks just like stock. The seats, we've been using them for a little bit now, a little over a week. And I can tell you they actually do get super cold on their maximum setting, and the heat is also nice as well. Everything works great. I think it turned out really great. It's a great value, I think, for the price. And also, too, I can tell you the truck has that new truck smell. So really enjoying that. Get a quick shot here of the back seat as well, how that came out. Everything here looks fantastic. I mean, you never know that this wasn't stock. Everything fits so well. And another bonus, like I mentioned, you get the stock one only had one pocket. Now I got pockets on both sides, so pretty awesome. Alright guys, so that's going to wrap up this video. So here's your pro tips for installing your leather seats. I'd say number one is start the back seat. I definitely think is a little bit less intimidating, not having any of the electronics and not having the heat seaters and coolers back there. So start there to kind of get a feel for how the upholstery side of things work. Number two is don't get intimidated by the wiring. Like I mentioned earlier, it really just comes down to basically one wire from the battery and one accessory wire coming off of something else. You can use like a grounding test light to figure out which wire is going to work for you. But in this case, if you're using it on the Tundra, you know that cigarette lighter outlet right there in the center console is a great location, and it works off accessory power. And number three is I would definitely recommend watching some of the other videos from leatherseats.com. They have lots of tips and lots of good information on there that definitely help me out, and maybe they're not specific to this car, but there's lots of good information on there as well, so check those out. So that's going to do it for us today. Remember to like, share, comment, and subscribe. Let us know in the comments below, would you ever try something like this on your own car? And we'll see you next weekend. Hey guys, welcome back to Professional Weekenders YouTube channel. Today we're going to it would be nice if they made a set of needle nose hog. Wait for the car. Right. Again, just try it, just like I've done everything else here. It's not focusing. Package that they offer, I believe. Let me just double check this. Lift this thing up. All right,